Hey, y'all, and welcome to another episode of We Ain't Dying for This, a Black woman's guide to liberation. I am your host, Crystal Johnson, and we are a community of Black women commanding our collective liberation through radically soft living. Happy to be here with you from Chocolate City with my sis, Brittany Janay Kess, and we're going to be talking about legacy as liberation. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
This is good.
I know. I
This
love it
feels
so
really
much.
good.
We've known each other for so long on the internet.
Mm-hmm,
And then this past summer, you were at my retreat in Cartagena.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That we met each other in person. And now we're seeing each other again in person.
I actually shared with somebody that story recently because I do think that relationships like ours have expanded my understanding and definition of community. And so I think we connected, I want to say maybe like 2019.
It was a long time
2019, maybe even 2018. It was like right on the heels or right before Liberated Love Notes. And although we connected for the first time in person last year, it definitely felt like just right. Just right, just true. And so I share that just as a testament to how I've experienced you, home community.
Yeah.
And I see it as a gift. So kudos to you.
Girl. I do.
Kudos to you.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been great.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've talked to each other about a lot of different things that have been happening in our world and talked each other off the ledge a couple times.
A lot of transitions. Yeah, a lot of transitions between, over the past now, like 7 years. Wow.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it's all coming together today on legacy as liberation. It's going down. But before we begin, I want you to tell people, who is Brittany Janay Kess?
You got the whole government. I love that question. Who am I? I use who am I and the invitation to respond to I am as a just like gauge of my own presence. And so today, I am Brittany Janay. I am at my core wonder. And that's a knowing that I have come to just over the past few months. I am wonder. I am the balance of faith, creativity, critical self-reflection, and possibility, which feels like a gift and an inheritance, especially in times like this. I am from, that feels relevant to a discussion on legacy. I am from a lineage of Black caregivers, community stewards, women who prayed and hoped, women who loved fiercely, women who had boundaries even before we had that language.
Had the words.
Right? In the spirit of this being a space that centers Black women, I'm from Loretta in her fierce love. I'm from Lucille in her creative brilliance. I'm from Lula B, who has this like healthy suspicion about everything. And so the fact that I live in curiosity and questions and even critical self-reflection, that's something like an inheritance. I am a Black woman, partner, wife, mother. I'm lover of Black people. And that's just at the core of how I show up in everything. I have the privilege of being the steward and founder of In Love and Accountability, coaching and consulting, which is just one way that my love of us and commitment to reimagine and work this world and leaning into possibility shows up. I am the creator of Liberated Love Notes, the love offering that keeps on giving. For the folks who aren't familiar, it's a affirmations card deck that I created as part of my own practice to heal, unlearn some of the harmful internalized forms of whiteness, capitalism, that get in the way of liberation. And so, yeah, that's who I feel full in the spirit of. I feel full. That's my word. You said you saw it when I got in, and I literally today, y'all, had my meeting with my therapist, and she said it's giving fullness. And I love that distinction because I know what overwhelm feels like.
We do.
And so fullness feels aligned. Fullness feels like a gift. Fullness feels like a good place to be, even as the world is in this like clusterfuck, right? So I love that for me, in us.
Me too. And fullness feels grounded.
Fullness is grounding.
Yes, exactly. And I have been saying, because it's something that Christy Rutherford said on LinkedIn not too long ago. And she said, I'm not going to allow what's happening in the world to make me hysterical. And that was a gift to me, to like have that language to say, I'm not going to let this make me hysterical. Like, I can't control any of the things that are happening outside of me in this moment. So I'm not going to let them make me hysterical. I care.
Yeah.
I care a lot. But I'm not going to allow it to make me become ungrounded.
That's good. Another Black woman, colleague, sister, friend, reached out to me yesterday and was processing her work, right? She's like, I'm like, should I be pivoting? What should I be doing? I feel like she even asked the question, like, is my passion clouding my judgment? Ooh. Like, should I be like stopping? And a bulk of her work focuses on black folks, Black leaders. And I invited her to consider, like, your passion isn't clouding your judgment. If anything, it's giving clarity to what you can be, will be, should be doing, especially at a time such as this. And I recognize the very human reaction to chaos is to question, to like, maybe experience some anxiety, to maybe experience some stuckness. So let's honor that humanity and to be human and divine. When I think about our divinity, is to be able to say like, ooh, this is going on and here are my values. This is going on and I come from a lineage of people who were not dissuaded, right? This is what's going on, and I am ever more clear in like my destiny and purpose. And so this honoring of like human reaction, and I'm divine, right? I am a divine being. That's all connected to this. I would say, legacy as liberation.
For sure. And I think sometimes when people think about legacy, they think about what are you leaving behind in terms of something tangible, like money, baby, a house, things like that. But I don't think we think of it in terms of what are the inner things, the mindsets, all those things that we leave behind as well. So with that being said, what are some of the lies that we tell ourselves about legacy?
So I love that you brought up how limiting the norms of this world can be for us, how limiting dominant culture can, in some ways, like confine our imagination of what is wealth. You know what I mean? Of what is wealth. Because for me, like, legacy is wealth, right? Legacy is a form of wealth. I've been really intentional about juxtaposing lineage and legacy because I don't think there is one without the other. And that is a knowing, a byproduct of my own just sitting with, like, what is love? How does my work like come together? Lineage and legacy like stood out. I started to, I'm a journaler, talk about practices that support presence and liberation. And so I, a few months ago, last year, started to like reflect on legacy, lineage. Legacy is just as much about the future as it is about the present, as it is about the past. And so I guess that's my answer to like what's one of the last. Legacy is not just, like thinking ahead. Legacy is recognizing that the extent to which I am able to leave something behind, to reimagine different, is directly connected to the extent to which I remember, the extent to which I am a student of the past, and not just like, what do we call it? Going back just to fetch, the principle of Sankofa, but going back to fetch so that I can like reconcile with my present, going back to fetch so I can like learn from that and build something anew. And I feel, and that is something that is, I would say, just critical to our being as Black people, but even more so Black women. And so I wrote down here that when we ground ourselves in lineage and legacy, we are building, we are leading, we are living, knowing that we benefit from the wisdom, the gifts, the relentlessness of our ancestors and elders. Lineage and legacy is us building and knowing that the generations to come will benefit from our wisdom, our gifts, our healing, and commitment to thrive. It's asking ourselves the questions, and I'm a lover of questions, y'all. I like sit in. That's what wonder is. Yeah. It's asking ourselves the questions: who and what brought me here? What have I inherited or internalized along the way? What will I hold and what will I release? How will I be remembered? And what kind of ancestor do I want to be? And that's the one for me when I think about legacy. In the same way that I've shared often publicly that my own grieving of elders who have transitioned in my family was a throughway or a pathway to like demystifying some of I don't know how to do what can we say? Demystify some of the like lies of spirituality and like what it means to commune with those who are not in this realm. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That was pathway for me to begin to not just honor my cultural ancestors, and so the Maya Angelou's, the Toni Morrisons, right? The Audre Lordes, the Bell Hooks, the more recently the Nikki Giovanni's, but also just get curious about what exists, what gifts, what lessons, exists in my own, lineage. And part of that has been just knowing that, oh, wow, is not, legacy isn't like something I'm leaving behind because I'm dying. I'm just existing in a new way. You know what I mean? And that's something that feels a little bit easier to prepare for and be mindful of. You know what I'm like, at least for myself. How am I and what am I leaving behind? Not because I will no longer be present. And yeah.
Because you can leave that when you're here. Like just in how you show up with people, how you interact, just your behaviors, the things that we have learned over time and the ways that we've transformed ourselves.
Our stories, right? Like even this.
Yeah.
One of the lies of legacy is that it's associated with like, what do we call it? Genealogy, or the extent to which you've actually given life to a human being. That's a lie. Yeah. Right? Right? Like when you think about how our gifts show up in interactions, like these, how our gifts show up in community, how our gifts, especially in this world where we have access to technology, right? And like who knows how many women, Black women, will be impacted by the platform of We Ain't Dying for This. Like that's legacy. And that offers a certain, I would imagine, I certainly know for myself, but for others, that also is some like stuff to keep you just like clear on how to be present. Listen. Because because if the question is if how I'm showing up is limited to what's going on around me in the now, then I'm gonna be fickle. Then I'm gonna be like,
Girl.
You know what I'm saying? Then I'm not.
Stop calling me out.
Right. Well, and if I know, right, if I know that, like, wow, this platform isn't just for so yes, to being present, and my gifts weren't created just for the now. This is the kind of stuff that has residuals, right? Right. When I think about, I like what you said earlier so much around. It's not just the tangible things that you feel like you can touch that you leave behind. I love that because when I think about my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, when he transitioned, this is a warehouse worker, a man who traveled from Enfield, North Carolina to Baltimore, 16, didn't finish or have an elementary school or still had an elementary school education, and yet rooted himself in Baltimore. When he transitioned, he was revered and recalled to be a man of big faith. Like, that's what people knew. Like, that was like wow, like, this is a man who would like get on bended knees in a gutter. You know what I'm saying? Because there was like a belief. This is a man whose prayers were more about probably the stuff he wouldn't even live to experience in his descendants. And so when I think about that, even as legacy, I'm like, ooh, it's no wonder I was able to leave a job that, you know, by all accounts afforded me a certain degree of flexibility and financial security. I was able to leave a job because my values no longer felt aligned. My soul was just like literally uncomfortable. That was powered by a faith that I experienced as an inheritance. In as much as, like, you know, some people have trust funds as, right? Like trust funds. I'm like, baby, it makes sense. I got a faith fund that's like, I be dividends, whatever you call it, that I can like actually go back to. And it allows me, like, that clarity allows me to experience and be present. And then even think about, ooh, like, if that's my inheritance, what do I want to leave behind? You know what I mean? Like, what do I want? You know, how do I want to be recalled? Right.
What you're leaving behind is compounded.
Right. Compound. Like, let's get the same way this is currency. Legacy is wealth. Legacy is currency. You know, I love that because now that I think about it, like, wow, part of liberation is redefining currency. You know what I'm saying? For ourselves. Right. So that we don't necessarily feel stuck or confined. And so that's also why the lineage and legacy pieces is like a both and for me, right? What have I benefited from and how will they benefit? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm definitely asking myself here.
Yeah. When you talked about being stuck, I felt that when you talked about like when things are chaotic around you, like there's this fickleness if you aren't like grounded in who you want to be. I felt it. I was like, girl, stop calling me out.
So, and I don't have this journal. I've referenced it, I think, in other spaces. So I have a journal. I think this was 2020. I share often that the first liberated love note that I wrote to myself was, I am not my work. I'm not my work, right? I am, and that was because I noticed that, like, in the spirit of groundedness, I noticed that, like, I was, my identity felt a little limited to, like, what I was doing and, like, what I was producing in the title and in my career, like, and I kind of lost access to myself beyond that. And so one day it occurred to me to draw a tree. Like, things would just be coming, right? And I'm like drawing a tree, and in the spirit of like being grounded and rooted. So I like on the journal entry, it's like it's the tree, but I drew the roots, and then there's the trunk, and then there's like the branches, and then there's like the leaves. And I noticed that I was really clear on like the branches, like who I am, my job. I was really clear on like all the ways I showed up in the world as, you know, strategist and as creative and like all these doings. I was even clear on like just like purpose, what I perceived to be the trunk. A lot of my wonder was in like, well, what are the things that like are like power, you know what I mean? Like what are the things that are like keeping this tree alive, right? Because this stuff will change, but like what's keeping this? And I started to like, write out like, okay, values and like my gifts and like, my, wisdom that has been passed down intergenerationally, lineage, who am I from? Like all of these things that in my experience just keep me a little bit more like, oh. And I also want to name, just in the spirit of like empathy, that wonder can bring about a range of emotions, right? Depending on one's just like life experiences, right? And so let me just name that, because I don't want to suggest or give the paint the expectation that reflection around lineage or legacy does not come without, just some like, I would say pain, discomfort, pain, you know what I mean? Like, let's just name that. I would even say like trauma, like all of that is real. And that's the human piece that I referred to earlier. We are still human. We are very much human. And it is an invitation that I believe we're all deserving of. You know what I mean? Like it's an invitation that we can gift ourselves with the right supports, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of us at this point in time, and you've mentioned it several times, like the way that the world is right now. Yeah. I think a lot of us are taking a step back, taking a collective deep breath. And we're like, listen, we have tried to save the world from itself a gazillion times. And now we're going to step back and rest. But then there's this understanding or knowing that we don't know who we are outside of social justice, outside of activism, outside of our jobs, outside of our family and what role we serve in our families. We just have no idea who we are. So I give a lot of love to anybody who is asking themselves those questions. You went through that in 2020. I went through that in 2024. What year is it? 2024. In that I started to challenge, is this what my life is supposed to be like? Baby. Like I feel comfortable. Everything seems fine. But in my body, I'm like,
in my body, else? I actually love, like even that. One of the things that I noticed, so I had the experience of going through Brother Resma Menacum's, it was like the somatic abolitionism experience. It was like right before 2020. So I felt like, wow, God and the ancestors be knowing, because I needed, but it was an invitation for me to, what am I feeling in my body? Like get familiar with the question, who am I, is also like, oh, wow, who is this like vessel? What is this vessel telling me? How do I tap in ways that allows me to experience just another degree of presence? I noticed that as a practitioner, and so at the time, y'all, real heavy in racial equity, inclusion work, more so in the instructional design and facilitation capacity. So just like another level of emotional labor, especially when you like hold in space. And it hadn't occurred to me how much that, for survival purposes, I dissociated from my body. You know what I mean? Like from my body. Like how your work, right? The thing that I'm passionate about, connecting to my person, actually had me like out of my body a little bit as a way to protect myself. Because people would be saying reckless in these sessions, you know what I mean? As a way to protect myself. And I didn't realize like, oh shoot, I'm not even able to, like, wow, my heart is racing here. Maybe I need a handover heart. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh wow, maybe I need a moment to just lower my gaze. Like, oh, wow, I'm heavy on I tell people all the time, it's call and response and it's also regulation, right? I'm like, it is also me like regulating and like metabolizing whatever I'm experiencing because I know like I hold a lot of like energy and stuff. And so all this to say that the getting clear on who we are is also like getting reconnected in back in our bodies. That has been, and that in and of itself as Black women, that's some legacy type stuff. Yes, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that's legacy because it is not lost on me, right? That is a black woman who is also a descendant of enslaved Black people, that at some point in time, in a very tangible way, our body, you know what I'm saying, was not, was deemed to be not my own. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like my body or their bodies were deemed to be a currency or thing to produce, right? That so to even experience the invitation to like get in my body and declare that it is mine. You know what I'm saying? That in and of itself is an example of this lineage and legacy. I know I will go back. You know what I'm saying? I go back. I know I'm present enough to recognize the work that I need to do and engage in, and they will benefit from this. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's like a mindset shift of this is my body. Say that again. This is my body. I'm in my body, and it is mine.
It is mine. This is mine. And so how will I tend to it? How will I tend to it in this moment?
Exactly.
Like I was reading one of my favorite books right now, contemporary author Brittany Janay, All the Black Girls Are Activists, and it is such a love letter and hug. There is a point where she talks about or references Toni Morrison in a way that I think I had experienced but never like language it the way that she did. But she talks about Toni Morrison being or experiencing her as in this like seated, like if you've ever heard her or seen her in an interview, she's just like so seated, so regulated. Yeah. And not in like a perpetuating respectability politics, like, oh, I gotta, fake the funk for these white folks, or, I don't want to, no, but just like in a very, I'm clear, I know who I am. Yeah. You say, they say some real wild stuff, and she just like, she's ready. Like, how dare you think that I would be confined by the white gaze? It's just like, so when I talk about regulated and the power of just like being in your body, what?
Legacy.
Yes. Like, I'm just like, actually, I'm trying to invoke that. You know what I mean? That for me is a beautiful possibility model. Yeah. Being in our bodies, even when you dealing with the foolery. Yeah. Right?
It's a beautiful thing for you to have that for yourself and also be able to share that with your children, but also your family, the people that you touch through the different things that you do. And you said something in the beginning that I want to go back to because I think it's important to the homework of it all. Like if someone's watching this right now and they're like, okay, like now that you've given me an understanding of what legacy is, what is lineage, that it is much more outside the box that I felt like it was in. What is something that I can do to start? And I want to go back to your prompt. Oh, actually, so I think the prompt would be good for people to get started on that thinking.
Look at you giving y'all journey work. I love it. So I'm really big on writing my stuff down, whether it's in my notebook. I have a bunch of these. At some point, I need to organize. I need somebody to help me organize them so they could be all together. Or even in my notes, my phone notes, because I know that everybody's, stilo.
Notes everywhere.
Right? Everybody's stilo ain't writing it. But one of my favorite prompts I shared earlier is like, just like I am, and then like, furthermore, I am from. And I mean, just as a start point in just curiosity around the people. And I'm not just talking about folks who you are associated with biologically or genealogically, but who are the people, the elders, the ancestors that are part of your lineage. And lineage for me sometimes is intellectual, like who did I learn from?
Yeah.
Spiritual, like who's poured into me. And so I think the I am from prompt is one. But then this one that came to me, this was y'all. I told Crystal February of last year, because I had set with this I am and I am from, I started to reflect on, okay, well, generations from now, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, who will they be from? You know what I'm saying? Like, who will? And I think when I wrote this, I was in community with other Black women. And so I used she will be from. But that was the prompt. And so if you had to complete the phrase, they will be from, he will be from, she will be from, what are the lessons you will leave behind? What are the ways that your gifts will continue to live on? What do you want their presence to be? And so something I wrote here, and it feels so present, even though this was last year. Y'all, when I read this, it's connected to a project that I'm working on now that I didn't even in that moment, I didn't realize what it was going to be, but I had a spiritual inkling. But I wrote here that she is from love, care, consideration, and strategy. She benefits from a record, a living record. She will bear witness to our journeys, our failures, our humanity. She hears my voice, my daughter's voice, her daughter's voice, and hers too. She recounts stories with ease. She contends with her challenges, not from a deficit, but with tools that have been created with her in mind. She is her own standard. She dreams, she questions, she imagines, she challenges, she plans and hopes, she creates without limitations, and I am accountable to her ability to do so. Right?
Legacy.
Right? And so that's like when I talk about grounding, you know what I'm saying? Like, shit is wild. But this, you know what I'm saying?
Chills.
Right?
Yeah. That was really so good.
So they will be from, right? He'll be from, she'll be from. What are those things that, inherent to you? Because I actually think a lot of this stuff, we don't got to like go seeking, and you don't need to get another certification for. No, I mean, if you want to, because I'm in a whole like coaching certification program, and you know what I mean? A lot of this stuff, we don't need to. No, I'm telling you, like, what is there, right? What is there?
Because we're chasing something that is external to us, and we're chasing the definition of what success looks like to them. Just like when we talked about legacy, we're in this box of it needs to be something tangible that I can hand down to enrich in a tangible way the people who come after me. But really, that's not even that's not
there's so much more.
I mean, there's it's an aspect of
it's one part of it.
Exactly, but it's so much more.
So much I love that. Who would they be from?
I love it. So for those who are listening who want to get to know Brittany Janay a little more, where can they find you online?
So I'm on Instagram, Brittany Janay _ LinkedIn, Brittany Janay Kess. Right now, we're smack dab in the middle of Black Love Month, Black History Month. We're actually on the heels of my birthday.
Yes, happy belated birthday, girl.
So that's probably another, you know what I mean? Like a new year will invite just a level of fullness and clarity. I share that because I am coming up on graduating from a Black women's healing center coaching program. And so forthcoming is an offering to Black leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers. And so for folks who would like to stay in the know, you can catch me at BrittanyJanay.com. Playing with the idea of Liberated Love Notes podcast coming back in some form. And in the spirit of legacy, there's like 45 episodes out there that I often return to, and so certainly invite folks to return to Liberated Love Notes, the podcast. And then last but certainly not least, I am, or had the privilege, honor of being part of a social change fellowship based here. We in DC, but I drove up the road from Baltimore, y'all. Yeah. So I'm part of the Doctors Elmer and Joanne Martin Social Change Fellowship, which is a community of 18 Black entrepreneurs who are committed to a thriving, loving Black Baltimore. And my capstone is upcoming. And in true spiritual alignment, it is a project rooted in lineage and legacy. And so I'm excited to be sharing more about that in the coming weeks, depending on when this is recorded. But I mean, when this goes live, but certainly invite folks to tap in at BrittanyJanay.com to stay in the loop, the lineage and legacy recording experience.
Yeah. I have loved having this conversation with you. I always love any time that we get to spend together. And I also want to say that Liberated Love Notes, those 45 episodes, are hosted on the same network that we are hosted on.
Collective.
Yes. Living Corporate. What is wrong with my brain today? Okay, I'm going to go back and say that. Right. This one? Yeah. Also just wanted to say that those 45 episodes of Liberated Love Notes is hosted on the same network as We Ain't Dying for This is, on the Living Corporate Network. So please check those episodes out and cross your fingers that Brittany will bring the Liberated Love
amen and
Notes.
Ashe. We'll see. It's given capacity. It's given intention, capacity, and
Bring it back.
Yeah,
girl. Bring it
I
back.
imagine so. I'm getting the nudges all over, and it'll represent. I imagine it being a representation of the evolution. I realize I haven't recorded since 2022.
I know, it's been a while.
Wow, such a different person.
Yeah.
Still rooted in some new ways, expansive ways. So
yeah, and as we talked about before, we've seen each other go through so many transitions over these last several years. Yeah, and it's nothing wrong with transitioning, shifting, pivoting, like getting closer to who your future self
that's good
really is. And we're always leaving ourselves little gifts along the way. So just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in for this week's episode around legacy as liberation, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.